Let me ask you something real quick. Has she ever seemed completely normal, posting on social media, laughing at your jokes, showing up to dinner on time, and yet something inside you just felt off? Like everything looked fine on the surface, but the version of her standing in front of you wasn't fully there. That feeling is not paranoia. That is pattern recognition. And most men ignore it because they don't know what they're actually looking for. Here's the truth. Cheating rarely announces itself. It doesn't show up as drama or obvious secrets or a phone that suddenly disappears. It shows up as normal behavior being used differently. And that is exactly why so many good men get blindsided. Not because they weren't paying attention, but because they were trained to look for the wrong things. Olivia here. Welcome to Her Algorithm. In today's video, I'm breaking down the 7 behavioral clues women leave when they're cheating. These aren't theories. These are patterns that repeat over and over and over again. And once you see them clearly, you will not be able to unsee them. Now, I want to be clear before we get into this. Not every woman who shows one of these signs is cheating. Context always matters. What you're looking for is a cluster of shifts, not a single moment on a bad day. You're looking for a new pattern, not a bad Tuesday. Keep that in mind as we go through this. Let's get into it. Clue number 1, sudden emotional warmth that came out of nowhere. This one gets men the most because it feels good. She's been distant for weeks. Maybe the conversations have been short, the affection has felt rehearsed, and you've been wondering whether the relationship is even working. And then suddenly, she's back. She's warm, she's touching you more, cooking your favorite meal, texting you first again, talking about the future. You think, finally, we're back on track. But here's what's actually happening. For a lot of women, guilt doesn't show up as withdrawal. It shows up as overcompensation. When guilt starts to creep in, the instinct is to manage your suspicion, and the most effective way to do that is to make you feel loved so you don't start asking questions. It's psychological misdirection. She gives you emotional reassurance right before you have a reason to doubt her. She knows that a man who feels loved will talk himself out of his own instincts. You start thinking, I was just being insecure. She clearly loves me. And just like that, your guard drops. Here's the distinction you need to hold on to. Affection that grows out of real progress feels steady. It builds over time. But affection that's compensating for something feels sudden, and if you're honest with yourself, a little unearned. Pay attention to the timing. If her warmth spikes right after a period of distance, or right after a night she was difficult to reach, that's not reconnection. That's redirection. Clue number 2. She starts casually mentioning another man. The easiest way to hide something isn't secrecy, it's familiarity. She starts dropping his name in conversation, casually, innocuously. Oh, that's just Marcus from work. Or, he's like a brother to me. Or, if you show any hesitation at all, babe, why are you being so insecure? He has a girlfriend. Those lines aren't transparency, they're training. She is conditioning you, slowly, deliberately, to stop questioning that man's role in her life. And it works. Because she introduced him early and framed him as harmless, you start to think of him as a background character. So when the texts come in late, when the inside jokes start, when he keeps showing up in conversation right after she's been distant, you don't put it together because you were already told there's nothing to see. Now here's the part most men miss. Sometimes that man starts as a genuine friend. That part is true, but emotional intimacy has a way of growing quietly. She starts venting to him about stress, about her goals, about you. Things that used to stay between the two of you start being shared with him. And that emotional closeness becomes the bridge to something more. Watch for the energy around that name. If she gets defensive when you bring him up, not just a little annoyed, but protective, that is your signal. If she starts comparing you to him, even in subtle ways, he actually listens, or he gets it without me having to explain it. She's already started emotionally leaning in his direction. Don't get distracted by labels. Friend, colleague, mentor. Those words mean nothing when the energy between them says something else entirely. Clue number 3. Her routine stays identical, but the details stop adding up. This is where things get really sophisticated. Because most men expect cheating to disrupt the routine. They expect her to start coming home at midnight, or suddenly skipping the gym, or acting visibly different. But women who are serious about hiding something know that consistency is the cover. She keeps the exact same schedule. Same gym days, same girls' nights, same hangout spots. Everything on the surface looks completely normal. What changes are the small windows inside that routine. She stays an extra 45 minutes after work because of a project. Her yoga class runs late because the instructor added a cool down. She just needed a little time to herself before coming home. Every individual explanation sounds completely reasonable. That's the point. But your gut starts noticing that the timelines don't quite line up. She says she left work late, but her coworker posted a photo hours earlier. She mentions going out with a friend, but she can't remember the name of the restaurant when you ask later. It's the micro inconsistencies that give her away, not the big, dramatic stuff. Women who operate this way understand that suspicion lives in change, so they avoid visible change at all costs. They don't switch up their perfume, they don't alter their look, they don't cancel plans. They repurpose parts of their existing day, and they do it inside the routine you already trust. If your gut says something is off, even when the surface looks perfect, trust it. That discomfort exists for a reason. Clue number 4. She turns your suspicion back around on you. The moment she senses you're starting to notice something, even before you can articulate it, something shifts, and suddenly, you become the problem. You ask a simple question about her day, and she responds with, "Why are you interrogating me? Don't you trust me?" Or she starts pulling out old grievances. "You've been distant lately. You've seemed checked out. You haven't been showing up the way you used to." Before you know it, you're apologizing. You're buying flowers. You're doing extra things to prove your loyalty. And she remains completely unchallenged. This is what's called the guilt flip. It is one of the most effective emotional maneuvers because it redirects all of your focus off her behavior and onto your own reaction. And here's the thing, she doesn't even have to be aggressive about it. Sometimes it's delivered softly, vulnerably. "I just feel like you don't love me anymore. I don't know, I feel like you've changed." Those statements sound like openness, but they are psychological misdirection. By making you feel responsible for the emotional distance she created, she rewrites the narrative entirely. It also helps her justify things to herself. If she can convince herself that you've been neglecting her or failing to show up, she doesn't have to feel like the villain. It becomes a mental loophole. "I only did what I did because he stopped caring." When you start feeling like you are the untrustworthy one in the relationship, pause. That's not confusion. That's a strategy. Clue number 5. Her social media looks almost too perfect. In today's world, a lot of the story gets told online. And the mistake men make is thinking that if she's still posting couple pictures, still tagging you, still showing up publicly in the relationship, then everything must be fine. That logic is exactly what she's counting on. Women understand that public image creates private protection. The cleaner and more stable her digital presence looks, the less anyone questions what's happening behind it. She posts a picture of the two of you, not out of love, but to reinforce the illusion of loyalty. She knows that if the world thinks you're happy, you'll feel social pressure to agree with that story too. You see the post, you think, she wouldn't put that up if she were hiding something. But that post isn't for you. It's for everyone watching, so no one starts asking questions. Meanwhile, the real activity is buried. Private stories you're not part of, messages on apps with disappearing content, a backup account you don't know about. And the clever part is, she doesn't delete everything. She designs invisibility. She'll scroll through her feed in front of you once in a while. She'll show you a harmless DM. It's controlled transparency, showing you just enough that there appears to be nothing to hide. What to watch for? Sudden social media silence after she's been very active. New consistent engagement from someone unfamiliar in her comments. A phone that gets locked faster than it used to, or a screen that tilts away when a notification comes through. She's not deleting evidence, she's curating a narrative. And perfection, online or otherwise, is usually a sign of management. Clue number 6. Her emotional energy is going somewhere else. This one is the hardest to name, but it's often the first thing you feel. Conversations lose their depth. Her presence starts to feel like she's halfway somewhere else. You try to tell her about your day, and you get one-word answers, or she's glued to her phone, or her responses feel like she's going through the motions. You feel like a roommate, like a business partner, like you're talking at her rather than with her. The intimacy is still technically there, but something about the connection feels hollow. Here's what's happening. Most women cheat emotionally before anything physical ever takes place. They find someone else who listens, who feels new, who feels exciting, who doesn't carry the weight of all the history and friction in your relationship. And slowly, quietly, they start sharing with him the things they used to share with you. The real thoughts, the real humor, the real vulnerability. And once that emotional transfer happens, you're no longer the center of her world, even if you're still in it. The moment she starts feeling understood somewhere else, the connection here weakens. And you will feel that withdrawal long before you can prove it. The laugh doesn't sound the same. The affection feels rehearsed. The compliments become generic. Watch for the emotional slips too. Subtle comparisons like, he actually gets it without me having to over-explain. She's not just making a comment. She's revealing where her emotional investment has started to go. For women, emotional cheating is not the warm-up. It is the real thing. The physical part, if it comes, is almost secondary. Clue number 7. She uses her own reputation as a shield. This last one is the most sophisticated and the most disarming. She's not the type. She's always been the one in the friend group who talks about how she could never do that. She posts about loyalty. She calls out other women who cheat. She's vocal about her values, her self-respect, her standards. And because of that, she is the last person you or anyone else would ever suspect. That's exactly the point. By building a public identity around being a good girl, she creates a psychological barrier that makes questioning her feel almost disrespectful. And if you ever do start to push back, if you bring up something that doesn't sit right, she weaponizes that image immediately. After everything I've said about this kind of thing, you really think I would do that? And you back down. Because the guilt lands. Because her image doesn't match the behavior you're starting to suspect. Because you don't want to be the guy who accuses a loyal woman of being disloyal. But here's what you need to understand. She isn't building that identity to be faithful. She's building it to look faithful. And those are two completely different things. The woman who talks the most about loyalty in public sometimes feels the least obligation to practice it in private, because she's already convinced herself and everyone around her that she's incapable of it. Don't be blinded by reputation or words. Look at patterns. Look at what she does when no one is watching. Because loyalty is never proven in public statements. It's revealed in consistent private behavior over time without an audience. So there you have it, 7 clues. None of them dramatic, none of them obvious on their own. But together, sudden warmth without reason, normalizing another man, a routine that doesn't quite add up, suspicion getting flipped back on you, a social media presence that's too polished, emotional energy that's clearly going somewhere else, and an identity built on looking loyal. When these patterns start stacking on top of each other, you are not being paranoid. You are being observant. And here's what I want to leave you with. If you recognize any of this, your job is not to react. Your job is to observe. Stay grounded. Don't interrogate. Don't chase reassurance. Expand your own life, sharpen your own focus, and let behavior, not words, not affection, not public posts, tell you the truth. Because behavior never lies. It just takes a clear set of eyes to read it. Olivia here. If this video gave you clarity, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!